This episode of Tekzilla is sponsored by Domain.com.
We got a tweet from @PaulaCreation who says, @Tekzilla, hey Zillas, I'm building a home recording studio. What do you consider the best studio headphones for under $100? I'd send you straight to Sony's $85 MDR 7506s, which the Wirecutter calls the best $150 over-ear headphones. But rather than having me explain why these headphones are such a steal, I thought we'd have the Wirecutter's headphone editor, Lauren Dragan, explain why these cans are so amazing. Lauren, welcome to Tekzilla.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Your work is amazing. You basically listen to headphones. That's what you do.
That is my entire life now, is just headphones everywhere, all day.
I think you said you were up to like 300 sets of headphones this summer that you'd listen to?
Yeah, actually, I think I just crossed the 300 threshold since 2012.
Oh my goodness. How do you keep, and when you're testing headphones, you're listening to music, you're listening to audio files, how do you keep the results of 300 headphones inside of your head?
Well, thankfully, it's not all inside of my head. I have spreadsheets, but for the most part, it's a lot of, I've kind of gotten to a little methodology now where I have everything organized, I bring everything in, I have this big table in what I call the test kitchen because it's actually my kitchen. And it's just covered with boxes of headphones that I'll then divide up, bring out, burn in, and then have the panel come and, try to do as blind of a testing as we can possibly manage.
So when you talk about headphones at the Wirecutter, one of the things you do is it's not just your ears, but you bring a group of people together to listen to headphones. Why is that?
And that's what makes the Wirecutter so unique, mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to work with them, is because it's not just my opinion. We get in at minimum 4 people for the panel. All of them have some form of audio background. So if you know Brent Butterworth, mm-hmm. I mean, he's the Brent Butterworth. He's been around for ages and knows everything about everything. Jeff Morrison, who you've had on the show before, mm-hmm. I know. And then we'll either have either John Higgins or Phil Metzler, who are both also professional musicians. So we get a range of different people to listen to these things that have different head sizes, ear shapes, listening preferences. And so it kind of helps to get rid of the bias, because mm-hmm. a lot of times what one person might find comfortable, someone else doesn't. So if 75 to 100% of our panelists can find something comfortable and agree on the sound profile, chances are a good chunk of people that are going to buy something off the internet that they can't hear for themselves, that they can't compare, will be happy. And that's our end goal.
Well, let's talk about the Sony headphones we mentioned earlier. One of the things that's kind of amazing is it seems like more often than not, like everybody agrees that something's like everybody likes the same headphone at number 2 and maybe 4 different or 5 different headphones at number 1, or they all agree like as the same headphone at number 1. The 7506 really stand out though. Why is that?
Well, you know what? First of all, they're $85,
right.
Which, if you look at some of the other price ranges out there, is remarkable. They have an incredibly flat signal response, mm-hmm. which is really nice, especially if you're going to be doing studio work or you're going to be doing any sort of mixing. Because as much as people have preferences for different sounds when they're listening to their own music on their own time, sure. You want to have something that's as even as possible. And they can take a beating. I mean, I worked in radio and I also worked in post-prod for a while. And these things, I've run over them with my desk chair. I've dropped them on the floor. I've seen rock band members drop beer on these things and just shake them off, and then they work. So for $85, they're in almost every studio I've been in for when I do voiceovers. So there's a good reason for that. They last, they're cheap, and they sound good. Done.
Yeah, no, I've got a pair of the predecessors, the V6s, that I think are 20 years old, 22 years old now, and outside of like 2 ear pad changes, yeah. They're just still going. And they kind of, you mentioned you burn in headphones before you test.
Yes, I do. And it's kind of a controversial topic, burning mm-hmm. in. There are actually some studies that have shown that after about half an hour, there's a plateau as to how the change, whether it changes anything or loosens the drivers or anything. So I try to do about 45 minutes on each headphone, which, as you can imagine, when you're doing 53 in a panel, is delightful fun.
Just sit around. Do you use pink noise to burn them in? I mean, because the idea is that the phones are made, they sit in a box, you bring them home, and then it takes some time for the, like you're seating the gaskets on an engine or something. Like the idea that the drivers are going to get stressed out. Well, stressed is maybe not the right word, but the physical mechanics of the headphone are going to kind of settle in place.
Yeah, and I understand the theory, but when you actually measure them, generally speaking, there's
Nothing
not a
changes.
huge change after about an hour.
Right.
And yes, you're going to have some degradation after years of use and hours and hours and hours. But once you get them out of the box and get them moving, I think a lot of it is psychological.
Okay.
Honestly.
Do you burn them in
So,
with pink noise or music, or what do you use?
Combination of the two.
Okay.
So I actually have a playlist that I have that runs a combination of pink noise, and then I'll do, some rock, some classical, just kind of to run the gamut of spectrum
Sure.
and dynamic range and just try to kind of get them going. And then I just essentially set a little egg timer and plug everything in, hit play, ding, switch them out, plug everything in, hit play, and then, that's that's a day.
Oh my goodness, that's probably not the most exciting part of the review process. When you talk to people and they're like buying headphones, do you recommend they bring their own music? I mean, because that's what I always say is, get a collection of tunes you're familiar with, use the player you're going to use, go to the store with the headphones and start listening.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think it's the best to do something really intimately, because even recording remasterings can be different. And so sometimes, especially when you go to like trade shows, CES, or you go into a showroom floor,
right,
they'll have something that's been tweaked to try to work around their specific, and it's and that, I'm sure you
No, I'm laughing because somebody's like, we have this amazing binaural recording that was made, and then it's like in this it's like some chapel in an obscure part of Germany, and the greatest tenor in the universe. I'm like, this is fantastic. You know what? I'm never going to listen to this, and I don't know what it's supposed to sound like in real life,
And that's one of the reasons also I love having musicians on my panel, because they will actually use recordings that they recorded in the studio. So no one's going to know what their guitar sound is supposed to sound like, what their mix is supposed to sound like, better than them. So they can actually sit there and say, when people hear people talk about, well, these headphones are what the artist wanted, the artist's representation of their music. It's another thing that a lot of HD people talk about. Well, no one's going to know any better than the people who actually recorded the stuff themselves.
Right.
So that's what's kind of great about it. But yeah, it's a lot. I honestly always say it's important to do what you're going to listen to, because that's what matters in the end, is what you're going to use them for.
So you said what I would consider the dreaded HD word. How do you feel about like 192K samples and sort of the high definition audio movement?
I mean, here's the deal. I do think that there is something to be said about perception of frequencies outside of the hearing range. I do think that there is something to that. But I don't know that we've gotten there in terms of being able to make that recording that you've got translate yet through, because there's so many factors that have to go in there. You've got your, D to A converter, you've got so many other things that go into it. And honestly, you hear about these high-res headphones, that's just a lot of hooey. I mean, there's I'm using TV-friendly words.
Who is good? It's a good TV-friendly word. But what you're saying, though, is when people say, if it's a high-definition audio player, okay, it might be like 192 24-bit support, which is probably higher than the DACs in your phone support, or for that matter, most computers. But you're talking about people who are like, the transducer, i.e. the physical speaker, which basically covers the entire range. Just the far end, it drops down here, and the far end, it drops down there. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, honestly, it really, and look, I have nothing against the idea of trying to improve quality, but also too, a lot of these things are getting remastered from other sources that weren't really capable of getting that level of quality in the first place.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think at this point it's still kind of a marketing thing. I haven't heard anything yet that's made me go, oh my God, this is amazing and it's changed my life. So
Yeah, no, I'm completely alongside you with that one. It's tough because I want something to take it to the next level, be that much closer to a real concert environment. But CD audio, and I'm going to get pilloried for this in the email. CD audio is actually shockingly good. Cue angry analog emails about vinyl and stuff. Headphones, you've done a ton of roundups at the Wirecutter. What was the one you just did? On-ear headphones?
On-ear is going to be posted later this week, and I'm currently doing testing for $200 in-ears for an update on that.
Interesting. What's the one that's gotten the most response from the audience on the Wirecutter?
Ooh, well, okay. In terms of positive and sort of just general, see, because there's two different kinds of responses.
Right.
There are the people that are very, very angry at me. And that, surprisingly enough, honestly, is the category that we were talking about at the top of the segment. I mean, it's the $150 in-ear range, over-ear range is one of those things that everyone's got an opinion on it, and everyone is so intense about it. And so there's been a lot of debates about that. And what sound profile is important, and I need a higher peak in the upper range to be able to edit video because it needs to have more dialogue clarity. And I'm like, that's awesome if that's what works for you, but that's not what I'm talking about. But actually, surprisingly, I've gotten a lot of people really interested in the sport piece because it's such a specific problem that you need to solve, and it's so hard to solve, something that's going to stay put, be waterproof, sound okay, and potentially fill other varying needs like ambient noise or something like that. It's that one's been actually really popular.
Before we go, I got to ask you one last question. What's your favorite headphones of all time? In-ear, over-ear, on-ear, or would you just rather listen to speakers at this point?
Oh God, it's like picking a favorite kid. It all depends on the circumstance. I mean, I really love, okay, if you want to talk like open back stuff, everyone talks about oddies or oddities. I don't know how you pronounce that. Those are magical. They're also gigantic. I look like I have Princess Leia things on my head. They aren't really something I could wear long term without killing my neck.
Right.
The PSB M4U2s still are really great. But I have different things for different applications. I have ones that I travel with that are noise canceling. I have ones that I like the sound of, like the oddities that I won't use anywhere outside of my house. Sure. I have the ones I take to the gym. So it just, I don't know. Not that I think everyone needs to own 8 pairs, but I've been so entrenched in this for so long, and I love all of them for their own individual reasons.
So basically you have a quiver of headphones.
Yes. Oh, God. Wouldn't that be amazing? Just pull out and be like...
I'm just excited that there's somebody who has more headphones in their life than I do at this point.
You're welcome.
Oh, my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, Lauren Dragan, the Wirecutter. Awesome, awesome work. Go check it out. And Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on Tekzilla.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up on Tekzilla, more viewer questions. But first, let's take a moment to thank one of our sponsors.
Domain.com is the place to go when the next great idea hits you. It's one-stop shopping for all of your domain name and web hosting needs. Have you heard the list of available domain extensions is growing? That's right. It's not just about .coms, .nets, and .orgs anymore. You now have the opportunity to name your site and build your brand in ways never before possible. You can choose from a growing list of 200 plus domain extensions, like my favorite .ninja, .nyc, .expert, and .club. All are available now at Domain.com. And the guys at Domain.com want to hook our fans up with an extra awesome offer. For the month of November, save 35% on domain names and web hosting when you use the coupon code Tekzilla at Domain.com's checkout. That's 35% and monster savings, and it ends on November 30th. Don't forget to use the coupon code Tekzilla. And when you think domain names, think Domain.com.